Hi, this is PatZi with a Z. Welcome to Joy on Paper Live, a program for writers and those who dream of writing, and for everyone who wants to know the story behind the book. And I have a lot of stories today with my guests because I am so happy to welcome Susannah Marren. She's going to discuss a lot of books today. And here they are. I wanted everybody to see them because I was talking to her on the radio program and we were talking about her books. And I mentioned her books and I mentioned about the lovely cover. So I wanted to make sure that I had her here and that we could look at her covers for a few minutes. Because as you see, she has book one, book two, and book three. And why is book three a little bit different? It's a little bit different style because there's a reason. Hi.
Hi, Patsy. How are you?
Okay. It's so nice to be able to talk to you and now show your covers because they are great. The first two have a little bit more of a romantic feel to them, a little bit more Palm Beachy because that's the background for your books and you're going to tell us all about them. And the new one has a little bit of an ominous cover and there's a reason for that too. And that worked out so nicely, didn't it?
Yes. It was a very big decision. The two decisions, because this is the third in my Palm Beach novel series, and I'll be writing my fourth. I am writing my fourth. I'll be bringing my fourth out next year. And the idea that I changed the title from a Palm Beach Shadow to Marabelle's Shadow, excuse me, and that we also decided, the publisher and I, and my agent, that we would go with a very kind of mood cover.
Very
So
atmospheric, very atmospheric.
there's much more mood in this particular jacket. And it was because this all of the books have secrets, because I'm fascinated by how women carry their secrets and can lie for the cause, and why women need secrets. So while A Palm Beach Wife and A Palm Beach Shadow had secrets, this one really has a lot of
Mm.
betrayal and suspense as well. And so I wanted that to be conveyed in this jacket, and I hope you'll agree with me that it definitely sets the tone.
Oh, it does. It's a great cover. Really, I found myself just staring at it and right away being drawn into the story because I know it's going to be a little bit different from the other ones. It's going to have a little more suspense, I think, too. Um,
Right, and more drama. And the one that I'm writing now to hand in is even more so, where we really are uncovering what lurks beneath. And that really fascinates me about women.
let's step it back a little bit. Let's step back to the beginning of this is a sister drama in many ways, but there's also a fascinating mother. So give us a little backstory to the.
I have long been intrigued by how sisters get along or don't. I have long wondered about and admired how family systems are understood. A sociologist or a psychologist would tell you, but because I've written the 13 nonfiction books before I started publishing novels, and I'm actually working on a nonfiction book now, as well as writing the sequel to this, I had written a book called Sisters Devoted or Divided. And in it, I was hearing some really sympathetic and connected sister stories. And I was also hearing sisters who really betrayed each other and the trust. And also the mothers who, which really shocked me, can actually favor one sister over another. I thought that was just a fascinating aspect of families. So, this story of Maribel, who's in her late 30s, and her younger two sisters, her middle sister Caroline and her sister Raleigh, they are truly dominated by their mother, Lucinda, who is a striking character herself. She's a survivor, which really interests me when it comes to women. And they are in Palm Beach, which is a beautiful, privileged, rarefied town and very judgmental. And it's the judgments once the secrets are out that really intrigued me.
Let's step back to the Panhandle because this is where the actual background of this family starts. We've all heard of Palm Beach, and some of us have been there. And for anybody who's been there, when you say rarefied, this is rare, like Wagyu beef, because really, because they live a life that most people can't even imagine.
And what's so fascinating about that is in a capitalistic society, PatZi, we would assume that the women have nothing to worry about, nothing at all, because they live in a place where obviously you have to have a lot of money to live. And thus, all your concerns are taken care of. And they have beautiful things. There's a lot of label buying, which is really indicative of how women behave. And in a celebrity culture and a social media culture, we all know who wears what. So here they are, the Barrows family, Maribel and her mother and two sisters. And here they are, and everything's fine, except by the first chapter, Maribel's handsome young husband, a real catch of a husband, dies unexpectedly. And that is the inciting incident. And that's what changes everything. And then suddenly the truth is up for grabs and the secrets are steeped, and each sister's kind of out for herself.
And of course, always hovering in the background is Lucinda.
Lucinda, yeah. The mother, I think I had mentioned this to you that before we went live, that Lucinda is not really likable, and yet we admire her. Her tenacity, her social ambition, what she believes will bring happiness in the right life. And they are from the Panhandle, and what happens in the Panhandle stays in the Panhandle, or does it? She's fought very hard to reinvent herself, and yet Samuel's death has opened Pandora's box.
It's true, and it's so funny for anybody who has been to Palm Springs. It's just, I'm sorry, who's been to Palm Beach, but it's also the same with Palm Springs. It doesn't have. It's funny. Both of the palms, those they have attracted the richest people you can imagine, who have
And
everything.
there's a great deal of entitlement.
Mhm.
And yet, based on my life's work on how women really feel in my nonfiction books, how do women really feel as wives? What does marriage really stand for them? How do they really feel about their friends? Are there rivals at work? I did a whole book on why women keep secrets and lie for the cause. How do they feel as mothers and daughters and sisters and mothers in law and daughters in law and stepmothers and mothers getting along or not? So, looking at all these different social and familial constructs, we're really, and I hope my readers are really rooting for women because it's tough. It's not easy for us. It really isn't, even in a beautiful place. Women are
Not-
judged and they judge each other.
Oh, they do. They judge each other very harshly. They judge
I,
everybody who comes into their just in their circle. Everybody is judged. I had some really
and what does belonging mean in a place like Palm Beach? I really researched that. My parents lived in Palm Beach for decades, and my mother came from a very humble family, and she just she was like so excited to be there. And she had these friends, and what struck me as fascinating about my mother's years in Palm Beach was how important, and this really mattered when I chose Palm Beach as the locale. Whatever age these women were, they seemed confident. And I think ageism against women is such a big part of our culture that I was really struck by how all these older women walked around feeling confident and how they embraced their friends. Okay, the flip side is that with these friendships came a worry about being judged, a worry about being included or excluded. So it's a very complex reflection of how women navigate a path.
and of course throughout the book, the three sisters, they all have different personalities and different ways about going, uh, controlling their lives and making their lives interesting, the careers that they take or don't take, the options that they have. So tell us about the three sisters. The oldest one is
Maribel.
Maribel.
She's late 30s. Bella's really the good girl, another role for females that I'm very interested in. And being the good girl is costly to oneself often. But until Samuel dies and all hell breaks loose, and who was Samuel? What really happened to him? Who is Maribel to be married to him? To have married him? Before all that happens, she has this coveted role as the editor of the executive editor, really editorial director of Palm Beach Confidential, a popular Palm Beach magazine. So Maribel has that going for her, and she has no children, and she has great pride and is admired around town for her work. And this magazine is in every store and every condo in the lobby, and everyone reads it. So she's happy, she thinks, but not, I don't want to give away the book, no spoiler here, but not perfectly happy. But she is doing everything that her mother wants her to do. And oftentimes on my book tour, I'm asked, what character do you identify most with? And what I identify about it in Maribel's personality is and her journey is the idea that if you put one foot in front of the other, you'll get the right result. Because that's what Maribel really believes. And it's just shocking to her system when that's not the case. When in fact, it's the opposite. And she's done everything right and she does not get the right result, which is true of so many females in our culture.
And of course, having such a high power position is fascinating because it does give her a, sort of an overview of the community in a way that perhaps other people in the community don't have.
And she's very careful and judicious about what stories should run. And there's a lot of gossip in this town and a lot of envy and jealousy. Another theme in the lives of women that really matters to me is female rivalry. And I'd written a book that came out in the early 2000s called Tripping the Prom Queen: The Truth About Women and Rivalry. And in that study, and for all of my nonfiction, I talked to a diverse group of women in terms of race, level of education, ethnicity, religion, earning power, all different ages, all across the country, everything from a suburb to a rural area to a big city. And what happens with rivalry is that we are all raised, females of all ages, a disparate group of us, we are all raised thinking there's not enough pie. We live in a patriarchal culture, and power is hard for women to come by. And that's absolutely true in this novel. Maribel has power in a way because she's the editorial director of Palm Beach Confidential. But her mother has great power because now that she's widowed, but remarried, but widowed, and from the man who started the family business, her husband and father of her children, named Reed. He shows up when they think about him and refer to him. And he began a kind of convenience store / Amazon Go company. And this company has really grown. And Lucinda takes great pride in this company doing well. So that's her power.
And her sisters, she has the dynamics between those two sisters and between her is fascinating.
The whole idea that Lucinda can reel in one daughter more than the other. And Maribel and Caroline are close in age. Caroline's the middle daughter. She works for the family company, she works for Barrow's. And so, because she is the middle child and she's always been very amenable to her mother's wishes, she is the Palm Beach daughter who does it all. She has two little girls of her own, and her husband works at Barrow's too. And so did Samuel, but before he died. But the point is that Lucinda has almost a puppet, she's almost a puppeteer for these girls. And it's Raleigh, again, no spoiler, but it's Raleigh who just really can't conform. The youngest, and she's younger by a chunk. She's the most vulnerable, and yet she's the most resistant to Lucinda's dream of how her daughter should live.
It's a fascinating story that, and I had originally when this is very funny. I had been thinking about you. I always think about books to recommend for summer reading. So naturally, I would think about you. And the weirdest thing, it was like I almost thought I was going a little bit cuckoo. It was like deja vu, because one of the reasons I wanted you back today was because you started a new book tour, and I talked to you on the first anniversary of the
Right,
book.
yes, it's
And so
true.
it was now it, because the interview was the first anniversary, and I looked at what I interviewed you a year ago, and most authors never don't come back again. They don't do another run at doing interviews. They don't do another publicity tour. They've gotten so into the habit of a book comes out, they have the release date, they do a big promotion, they spend money because people don't realize how much you have to pay if you're going to do publicity and all of that and all the things that go with it. And then after, if you're with a major publisher, they'll give you 6 weeks. If you're not with a major publisher, maybe 4 weeks. And if you're doing it yourself, you can probably last a few weeks, and you don't get these tours. You don't do that much. And then I don't hear from them unless I contact them. And I do. I contact authors years after they've been on the program because I say, I'm reading your book again, or I'm recommending it, so I want you to come back. And authors are always surprised. And so when I realized, I knew I wanted to interview you on this tour, but I didn't, when I looked at it again, then after a while I thought, did I make a mistake? Is she really doing another tour? Or it's deja vu or what? And I was so surprised that you were doing this tour. And I think it's a fantastic thing.
Thank you. I was in Florida almost all of January, February, March promoting this for women's groups and book clubs and library, the Authors Live series in South Florida. And there was a really nice response. And I was asked to do some more promoting. And this is my 17th book, 13 nonfiction books, and my fourth novel. And so, PatZi, I really know the industry enough to know that if you want to, you can keep promoting. And you're right, a lot of authors just are on to the next thing.
That's right. And they don't realize that, yeah, they can do another tour. They can have another shot at, because you never know when it's going to hit right. You never know when you get.
So this book is really a good summer read.
I
And
think it's a great summer read.
yeah,
I love
so
I love books with a little bit of suspense, keeps you going. And all three books are great summer reads, but the new
thank you.
one, of course, is really great. And I can't let you go without mentioning, we mentioned your nonfiction books. And of course, I interviewed you one time for this book, A Passion for More. As I was telling you earlier, I know this is a 30-year study, but when you look like you're only 30, it's real hard. I keep
You're very
thinking,
nice. Thank
where,
you.
how did you do this? Ex-
A, a Passion for More was my very first book published. You'll see it's under my real name, not quite as melodic as Susannah Marren. My real name is Susan Shapiro Barish. So this book is a 30-year study on female infidelity. And for this, like all of my nonfiction books, as I said, I interview a diverse group of women, anonymous interviews. And then, as you'll see with the little insignia right there, She Wants More, that iHeart Media, iHeart Podcast bought it last year, and they did a series, and they named it She Wants More instead of A Passion for More. And that was really exciting when that was optioned, and they interviewed live women. real women in real time about their affairs.
Of course, I was so shocked by this book. I was really,
It is shocking,
it's
and
shocking.
yeah, at the same time, as I said earlier, and this really circles back to Maribel's Shadow. First of all, of course, there is an affair as part of the Maribel novel, but also women are very facile at keeping secrets. And the women in this ongoing study, in the aggregate, I've interviewed over 1,000 women for female infidelity, and they're very good at keeping the secret and keeping the affair going if they so choose.
That's what I discovered from reading your book. I was shocked. I can see that actually in all three books you managed to draw upon some of the things that you learned when you were doing research for this book.
Exactly. And all my nonfiction. In the Palm Beach Scandal, the second of my Palm Beach novels, there's quite a mother in law. And that's because I did a study on mothers in law and daughters in law. I wrote a book about that years ago. And so that, of course, had to factor in.
Well, all I know is I was so happy when I've read some of this book and some of the others. I was so lucky. I had the greatest mother-in-law, the greatest. Somebody better than that. As a matter of fact, if she was just so wonderful, and I have a sister, and she's so wonderful, we wouldn't make
You're
good.
very fortunate, and it's a good time to explain to you that I also get some good stories. Not My books are not negative. I just am digging deep into all different scenarios.
Yeah, it makes it for fun reading. It makes it for interesting reading, and this passion for more that you wrote about. I can't even get into the numbers and the things today, but I think we'll have to do a separate interview where you'll come on and we can maybe have
Talk
some
about
charts. We'll have to, because some of it you have to see it as a chart. When you see the numbers, people will say, "Oh my goodness, oh my dear, what is going on in this world?" But because these are real numbers that you're getting and real stories for that book.
it's amazing how many very conventional women end up embarked in an extramarital affair in long-standing monogamous relationships or in marriages. But no one starts out saying, "Gee, I wonder when I'll have my first affair."
Yeah, I
It's
don't.
really it really happens as a result of the relationship, marriage or long-standing relationship. And it's also really reflective of how a woman changes and what sort of self-care she searches for. It's not for everyone, but I am here to note that it certainly happens and that women are very willing to embark on an affair if they so choose.
Did you do a study what happened during the pandemic? People couldn't fool around
I
so much.
did. There were many cyberspace affairs, many affairs of the mind. And that was sustaining for some people who felt very sequestered. And well, we were all stuck. And yeah, there were lots of affairs, really an uptick in affairs and an uptick in divorce after the pandemic.
Maybe I can see.
Those
I
are
mean,
just
yeah. For me, it is no problem to be. I heard some women who were going crazy because they were with their husbands all day. That would that would
right.
that wouldn't have occurred to me. So I was.
I call that the pretzel crunching phenomenon, where women said to me things like, "Who knew my husband ate pretzels all day, and he crunched so loudly I could barely be on a Zoom." And just the confinement of it. They're just it, it's interesting how many relationships, romantic relationships and marriages are sustained because of the days separate, not the days together. And
Well,
so it was, yeah, there are definitely some COVID resulting affairs in this updated book. It just came out last year.
okay. Well, it's wonderful to talk to you again.
Thank you.
I think that your writing, the Maribel, and the entire story is fascinating. And I think everybody who likes this sort of epic dynasty kind of thing, where you follow a family and what happens to them, will enjoy this book and will have fun with it. You've done a really great job. I just want to show people the books again. So you can start with Mirabelle's Shadow, which is it's the first anniversary of the release, and then there's a Palm Beach Wife and a Palm Beach Scandal, and they're all really good, and you've done a wonderful job with them. And,
thank you so much.
And again, I think it was a clever idea when you said that you decided to change the cover. So here are your websites, and this is where people can contact you, both at Suzanne Shapiro Barash and also at Susannah Marren. And they can find out more about you, and they can find out more about your books. 17 nonfiction books? Wow.
13 nonfiction books and 4 novels.
13 nonfiction books and 4 novels. That's a lot of writing.
A lot of writing.
Okay. It's been a joy to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining me today on Joy on Paper Live. Bye-bye now. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Turn the house